Relieved, honestly. That's how I wanted it to go.
Difficult as it has been for me to envision me marrying her today, it's equally as difficult for me to envision marrying her tomorrow or 10 years from now.
Am I surprised by the outcome of Micah and Paul's wedding? No, not really. Not really. I don't think they were a perfect match. Let's just start from there. I think Paul is too what can I say? I'm looking for the right word. I think Paul is too, he's a scientist. He's too advanced for Micah, for lack of a better word. I don't know how to describe it. I'm not saying she's dense. I'm not saying she's dumb, but I don't think she has the same qualities that he would need in a partner. I think he would need someone who's able to challenge him mentally, someone who's compassionate, someone who's empathetic, someone who's able to bring him out of his shell. And I don't think Micah is that. Even in his final words, he said, he didn't feel that she had the capacity to be nurturing, and this is one of the reasons why he said no. So hey, it is what it is. Hey there, thanks for stopping by. It's your girl Valerie. Welcome to my channel. I know I've decided to sort of edit my review of the wedding separately just because I thought it would be too long. So in this episode I'll be reviewing Love is Blind season 4 episode 12, Paul and Micah's wedding. I don't even know how Paul was able to drag this until wedding day. I really don't get it. But then on the other side, when the season started, he came across to me like someone who was sort of in this for the experience of it. Okay, listen to me. What I mean is, it seemed like he is a scientist, and it seems like he was in it for research purposes, in the sense that right from the start, the way he was talking, when he was getting to know the people, and sort of the way he was analyzing the process of love is blind, in the sense that you go into the pods, you date someone, you get engaged to someone, you go to Mexico, you come back, you live together, and then you get to the altar. It seemed like he was going through the process to sort of research, to see whether he could prove that love is truly blind or it's not. And I don't know whether he proposed. I can't truly say he proposed to Micah because he had an emotional connection to her. Maybe he liked her, but I don't think he loved her, because I remember in his conversations with Zach, he always used to say, I think I love her. He never once said, I love her. He always used to say, I think I love her. Anyway, he comes to the wedding. He's happy. It's wedding day. He says he's still conflicted. He doesn't know what he's going to say. Micah, on the other hand, is excited that it's wedding day. She was talking to her friends, that they have different sense of styles, but she's trying to sort of modify him into something that's more polished. I think Micah saw Paul as a project. She didn't use the word that Marshall used to say project, but I think she saw Paul as a project, and her goal was to sort of turn him into the man that she wanted him to be. But sadly, in doing that, she's turned him into an ideal man for somebody else. That's the impression that I got. And I think I was talking about Kwame getting a negative edit. I think Micah and Paul got the best edit. Outside of the Kwame situation with Micah, I think they got the best edit. I think the toxicity was left more to her friends than it was to Micah, because we didn't see her behave in any way that was sort of off-putting as much as we did the friends. And I was actually surprised that she got Shelby to be one of her bridesmaids, given how badly Shelby spoke about Paul and how she was against this relationship. It was nice to see Paul when he sat down with his groomsmen and they were sort of having a conversation about his relationship. I like how they were able to dissect the relationship and actually pinpoint to what Paul really liked about Micah. And Paul sort of was able to express himself that he was worried that would they be able to grow from where they were right now. And there was also a worry that because of the way they had lived throughout the experiment, would that translate into the real world? Will they be able to sustain themselves in the real world? And I remember Micah was trying to get them to move back to where she's from. I think she's from Arizona or somewhere. And she wanted Paul's apartment to change everything in it. She wanted to change his style and stuff. And I think these are some of the things these groomsmen were trying to point out, that are you going to be happy to go along with that? Or do you think that doesn't make sense to you? I personally think Micah told her friends and family that she was going to say no. because she kept apologizing to her parents and saying, I'm sorry for putting you all through this, I'm sorry for putting you all through this. And it's like, I don't get it. And then suddenly for her to get up to the altar and sort of run and hug Paul and say, I missed you, it doesn't make sense. Something wasn't right there. Something wasn't right. I don't know whether Micah thought she could play Paul and get him to say yes at the altar and then embarrass him by saying no, or whether she thought maybe Paul would say yes and she'd say yes and they would be able to get married, and then she would turn him into the husband that she wanted. I don't get it as well. Her bridesmaids, one of them looked very uncomfortable every time Shelby spoke. I think she wasn't happy with the way Shelby spoke, especially about Paul. And so I liked their vows to each other, and um, I was surprised, really. I was really surprised with the responses when they were asked, is love truly blind? I don't get why, if they knew they were both going to say no, they went to the trouble of forging the rings. I don't know whether it's the producers that were sort of trying to throw the audience off as to whether they would say yes or no. I know Paul was very worried. He was even speaking to his dad and his stepmom and sort of telling them that I don't know what I'm going to say, and I'm worried that whatever response I give might be the wrong one, because his bridesmen were telling him that, the benefits and the sort of negatives of you saying no or saying yes are just as equal. So I think this is why he was sort of worried about what he's going to say. And Micah, for her to turn it around and sort of say to him, I want you to respond first, I think that was as good as her saying no. And this is what Paul's mom said. And in her interviews, she's been saying, oh, well, I wanted him to choose me. I didn't want to say yes. And then he said yes just because I said yes. Paul is not that type of person that is likely to do something just because everybody else is doing it. As I said, I think Paul appears to have been in it for the research purposes. Well, at the start of it, that's the way he came across. I don't know whether he eventually fell in love with Micah or he was in love with Micah and he was hoping it would grow to love. The fact that Micah was saying, oh, I come from a divorced family and I'm happy, to be joining a big family like yours. And it's like, Paul is also from a divorced family. He's got a stepmom there. The reason you should have been maybe, I'm an only child because Micah is an only child and I'm happy to be marrying into a bigger family, so I'll have more siblings. I'll have you, my husband, and I'll have, your siblings to also be my siblings. That will make me a part of a bigger family. I didn't understand what she was trying to say about that. I didn't quite get what she meant by it. And also, I don't get Paul saying that he and Micah see the world the same. I don't get what they see the same, really. I don't get it. Can someone please help me? I really don't get what he says. We see the world the same. I don't know. I really don't know. I'm trying to pinpoint throughout their conversations in the season. I can't sort of say what religious beliefs, maybe. The fact that they want children, maybe. What else? What else makes them see the world the same? I don't know. It's sad though. I don't understand why Micah had to put her mom through this. She sort of paused for dramatic effect. I don't know whether it was the producer signaling to her to not say anything. And then she eventually said, I think the best thing I can do for us is to get Paul to respond first. And Paul was like, no. And she storms off and it's like, be honest. You really didn't like this guy. So why pretend like you liked him? And for Shelby to be in the audience saying, I wish I was a bit drunker for this. And it's like, why? Why are you even here? Has Micah stolen your boyfriend before? Or what is it? Why are you so bitter against someone you don't know? Has Micah done this to you before? And this is where they say your friends are a true reflection of who you are. And Micah hasn't done herself a great service by having people like Shelby or Irina as her friends. I think those are very toxic people. And I understand why Paul said, he couldn't see Micah in a nurturing role, and this is why he couldn't marry her today, tomorrow, or next year. And for her to say she felt unsafe is a joke, given the fact that she was just saying, oh, I can't go with, I'm always with Paul. I can't go 15 minutes. If he goes to the toilet, I have to follow him to say, are you okay? And when she came up, she ran onto the stage and sort of hugged him, and it's like, so when did we go from that to you feeling unsafe? And for her friends to be laughing at her in the background to say it happened the way I expected it to happen doesn't make sense. I know she was interviewed and she said, she hasn't seen it. Her friends always see her as joking. So I assume they just thought she was joking. And it's like, how are you joking by going to the altar and saying you want to marry someone? How is that a joke? I don't get it. I think Micah needs to do a lot of self reflection, and I think she needs to look at the people that she brings around her because her friends are not it. And for her mother to be sort of saying no one forced Paul to be there or whatever doesn't make sense. Her daughter never wanted to marry Paul, so why are they making it such a big deal that Paul has said no? It doesn't make sense. I have to give Paul credit because he stayed true to himself. He said that he wasn't going to do something just because that is what was expected of him. He didn't see Micah in a nurturing capacity, so there was no hope that he would have said yes today, tomorrow, next year, or whenever. So I think this is the end of this relationship as far as he's concerned, because he more or less said, he doesn't see her in that role, and she didn't come across as nurturing, given how she bullied all the girls in the pods with Irina. So I don't have any sympathy for her. Her friends are a reflection of who she is. She should have called her friends out when they were sort of saying horrible things to Paul, somebody they didn't know, irregardless of whether she was going to marry him or not. She can't start playing victim, and it's a pity. It's a pity that Paul decided not to give Amber a shot and thought he could, make things work with Micah. I don't know. I don't know whether it was in it for the right reasons. I know they did a lot of talking, Zach and Paul, and they're always dissecting their relationships and giving each other advice and stuff. But I don't know whether Paul was ready to be married at this point in his life. And if he was ready to be married, I don't think Micah was it for him. I don't think she compliments him. I think she would have been the wrong choice. I think he would have been bored. As much as he says they see the world the same, I think he would have been bored. But anyway, I digress. Thanks guys for watching. Please don't forget to like, share, comment and subscribe. Bye everyone.